Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we're looking at Kenrith the Returned King. So what does Kenrith do? He's a 5 mana white creature, but he has abilities in all colors, so he is a 5 color commander. And his abilities are red, all creatures gain trample and haste until end of turn. 1 in green, put a +1 counter on target creature. 2 in white, target player gains 5. 3 in blue, target player draws a card. 4 in black, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. So there's a whole bunch of things to note about Kenrith. So the first thing is every one of these abilities is actually relevant. You will activate any or all of them in various games. The most relevant ability is probably the draw ability, because this is an infinite mana outlet to force your opponents to draw out their entire decks. So Kenrith can be an infinite mana outlet from the command zone that can just win. And then surprisingly, I would say the next most relevant ability after that is actually the gain life ability. There are a lot of cards in EDH that cause you to incidentally lose life over time or lose life in big chunks. So cards like Mana Crypt, Ancient Tomb, City of Brass, Ad Nauseam down here. There's a lot of cards that make you lose life, and you can also just be getting attacked by your opponents. So this actually does come up a fair amount. The draw a card ability really is not worth it very much if you don't have infinite mana. So paying straight up 4 mana to activate this is not great. So you're usually only doing this if you've got nothing else to do. The trample haste can matter if you have a sufficient board to overrun an opponent. Sometimes you need to trample through them to hit a planeswalker that matters, or just to get the last bit of damage in on them. The +1 counter makes it difficult to block your guys in combat because you can pump things up. And then the reanimate ability is also relevant sometimes later in the game when you reanimate your own stuff. Now, Kenrith also plays a lot of politics because these abilities also apply to other things. So all creatures gain trample and haste, that applies to all creatures. So let's say an opponent is in a position where they can take out one of your other opponents, but they would need to haste their creatures. Well, you can give them haste and trample with this ability. The +1 counter, same thing. You can potentially change the combat math on other players attacking and blocking each other by pumping up stuff. And the last thing to note here is that the 5 mana black ability, it puts the creature back onto the battlefield under the owner's control. So if you reanimate a creature that an opponent owns out of their graveyard, they get the creature, not you. Now, as far as Kenrith goes, other than this blue ability being a good infinite mana outlet, there's really nothing about Kenrith that points you down to any specific path. So there's lots of different ways to build Kenrith. You can build him as a value-based mid-range control card. You can build him as a stacks card. You can build a combo Kenrith deck. Lots and lots of different ways to build him. This version of Kenrith is more on the mid-range value plan, although of course obviously it also has combos in it. So let's go through them. We've got our card draw, of course, pretty stock here. We've got our combos, also pretty stock. We've got Breach and Brain Freeze and LED lines. We've got Consul Oracle, Mnemonic Betrayal, and then Mayhem Devil and Phantasmal Image. So one thing to note is that with Kenrith's +1 counter ability, you can target your own Phantasmal Image to kill it, meaning if you have any way of generating a bunch of mana, you can kill your own image and then reanimate it with the reanimate mode. So this is one example of something that can go infinite with, say, Dockside Extortionist. So if Dockside can produce 8 treasures, which albeit is quite a steep amount, it can go infinite with Kenrith plus Phantasmal Image plus Dockside. You play Phantasmal Image, you copy your Dockside Extortionist, you make 8 treasures, you activate Kenrith's green ability, put a +1 counter on Phantasmal Image, sacks the Phantasmal Image, then you reanimate it, bring it back, you generate infinite mana. Now that's not going to usually happen, but there are ways of just doing things. It can also just allow you to change what Phantasmal Image is copying. And because you have combos like that, it makes combos with Mayhem Devil also relevant. Mayhem Devil also goes infinite with LED Breach lines because you're sacking LED. And there's just other ways of making Mayhem Devil good. Also, Mayhem Devil can just be incidentally good by picking off small creatures. And then you've got Kinnon in here to be yet another infinite mana outlet with his ability here, or just giving you extra mana. It also goes with Dockside to make the treasures produce double mana. So if you're short on the amount of treasures, you can use Kinnon to get more mana and then do the Phantasmal loop. Anyway, then we've got various counter spells. 1 extra turn spell in Final Fortune, sometimes that's all we need. We've got a bunch of fast mana, including Culling Ritual, as well as Skirk Prospector. Then a bunch of lands. It is a little light on lands at only 27. Some protection in Silence, Grand Abolisher, and Ranger Captain of Eos. Bunch of ramp spells, of course. including notably Lotho Corrupt Sheriff. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, you lose 1 life and create a treasure token. So it is the treasure version of Ledger Shredder. We've got our Savin's Reclamation, Orcish Bowmasters, and some other removal spells, Swords to Plowshares, Soul Partition, Snap. Soul Partition and Snap are also good as ways of rebuying ETB triggers like Dockside or just saving creatures from removal. We've got a little bit of stacks here in Dothy, Drannith Magistrate, Bowmasters, our sweepers, Culling Ritual Deluge, bunch of tutors, including creature tutors. Intuition can also make intuition piles that include Savin's Reclamation to combo off immediately. So let's say you have Intuition for like Breach, LED, and Savin's. Then you can get, then anything that your opponent gives you, you can get back the other ones. And that is basically Kenrith. Again, there's lots of different ways to build this deck. So you could have combo loops that involve blinking stuff with Displacer Kitten or Emil the Blessed. You can have loops that involve Eternal Witness. So for example, if you've got like Ewit LED and Mayhem Devil, those are ways to combo. There's lots of combos not shown here. There's lots and lots of other cards that you could be playing. You could be on a Hermit Druid build. You don't necessarily have to be on Adnaz. Just lots of ways to build Kenrith. And in particular, if you go to Commander Spellbook and you type in Kenrith, you can find all of the combos with Kenrith that go infinite, which is going to be a lot of them. So there are obviously all of the cards that reduce Kenrith's activated ability requirements. So Biomancer's Familiar, Training Grounds, Heartstone. It can potentially go infinite with Sack Outlets plus Dockside, where you reanimate, where you sack the Dockside for mana and then you reanimate it as long as you're producing enough treasures. There's ways of producing additional mana with mana doublers or triplers or other things that generate more mana. Composite Golem you see here, and Zerda is another activated ability cost reducer. Ashnod's Dockside, Phyrexian, Biomancer, Zerda, like lots and lots of different combinations of things that you can do. Peregrine Drake, and then you reanimate the Peregrine Drake with Ashnod's Altar. Ghostly Flicker, Archaeomancer, plus Kenrith, plus Will Kenrith. Like, there's lots and lots and lots of ways to go off, but we're not going to go through every single one of them. So, obviously many different ways that you can build Kenrith. This is just one of them. You can lean more towards the mid-range, more towards the combo, more towards stacks. This deck is playing a little bit of stack stuff in like Bowmasters and like Dothy and Drannith Magistrate, but you could be more all in on that. So don't think that there's just one way to build them. It's mostly going to be about utilizing Kenrith's abilities to the fullest. So in general, the deck is just going to play a little bit slower, even if you're on the combo plan, just because you need to get Kenrith into play, and then his abilities do cost a bunch of mana to even activate, other than just going infinite with the draw power to draw out your opponents. But a lot of times you're just going to be on Kenrith and then using his abilities like the Reanimate ability or the Life Gain ability to just get ahead of opponents. So yeah, that is Kenrith the Returned King.